You may have heard that investing is risky and only for the rich, but that's not true. It's easy to think this way because many people see investing as too risky. However, if you follow some basic principles, investing can help you build wealth. For example, if you look into the book Psychology of Money, a guy named Mike Smith, a garbage truck driver, became a millionaire by saving and investing despite having a modest job. Smith exemplified how consistent saving and wise investment decisions can lead to significant wealth over time. His story highlights the idea that wealth is more about behavior and mindset than income level. Now, the first principle you should know is compound interest. Simply put, compound interest is the interest on your interest. For example, if you invest $100 in a stock that earns 5% a year, you would earn $5 in the first year. In the next year, you earn interest on your total $105, which means you earn 5% of $105, resulting in $5.25. This is more than the $5 you earned the first year because of the interest on the interest. This is extremely powerful as it causes your investment to grow more in the future, similar to a snowball effect. Now that we know the eighth wonder of the world, which is compound interest, we have to move on to the rule of 72. The rule of 72 is a simple way to estimate how many years it will take for your money to double. If you expect a yearly return of 6%, you divide 72 by 6, which gives you 12 years. This means it will take approximately 12 years for your money to double. If you change the expected return to 10%, you divide 72 by 10, which gives you 7.2. So, with a yearly return of 10%, it would take you about 7.2 years for your money to double. And this is important because the rule of 72 helps us quickly estimate how long it takes for our money to double, making it easier to understand the power of compound interest over time. With an understanding of compound interest and the rule of 72, we can look at the S&P 500, which plays a significant role in building wealth through investing. The S&P 500 is a fund that tracks the 500 largest stocks in the United States. If a company underperforms, it is simply replaced by another company. The average annual return of the S&P 500 is about 9 to 10%. With this in mind, it will take us approximately 7 to 8 years for our money to double. This is important to know if we want to build wealth through investing, as it helps us project how long it might take for our money to grow, for example, to 10 times its original amount. With this in mind, let's go over an example. Let's say that we have our average Bob who just turned 25 years old with a salary of $60,000. After covering all his living expenses, Bob is left with $5,000 to invest. We want Bob to put this money into the S&P 500. But if Bob doesn't invest this money into the S&P 500, by the time he's ready for retirement in 40 years, taking inflation into account, Bob would have $16,000. But if Bob does invest into the S&P 500 without adding more money other than his initial $5,000 investment, assuming an average annual return of 10%, he would have approximately $45,000 by the time he's ready to retire. While that's a nice amount, it may not be enough for retirement. However, if Bob invests an additional $5,000 every year until he's ready to retire, his total investment would compound to an impressive $1 million, which is a bit more than just $45,000. And it also just shows the power of 72 and compound interest. Now, these are some nice results, but if you were to get 15% return yearly, then it would give you $2.9 million. But how do we get these kind of results? Well, first of all, we need to invest into individual stocks, and this can be difficult, but not really if you just follow some basic rules that I did cover in this video in the corner. Now, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the basics in identifying how to find good companies that can grow at 15% yearly. The first concept to understand is the price to earnings ratio, or PE, which shows how much you're paying per dollar of a company's earnings. For example, if the price to earnings ratio is 1, you're paying $1 for each $1 the company earns. If the price earnings ratio is 10, you're paying $10 for each $1 of earnings. The average PE ratio for the S&P 500 is around 15. So as a general rule, we may look for companies with a PE ratio under 15. To simplify it even more, imagine you are at a movie theater and each ticket is priced differently based on how popular the movie is. You want to know if you're getting a good deal, so you ask, how much does each ticket cost compared to the movie's earnings? If one movie earned $10 and charges $50 per ticket, the price to earnings ratio is 5. If another movie earned $10 but charges $100 per ticket, its price earnings ratio is 10. A lower price earnings ratio means you're paying less for each dollar earned, which can be a better deal. In stocks, the price earnings ratio helps investors see if a stock price seems fair based on how much the company earns. However, there are situations where paying more or less than this average price to earnings ratio makes sense. For instance, if a company is exceptionally strong at competing in its market, it may be worth paying a higher price earnings ratio, as it's likely to grow earnings in the future. On the other hand, if a company struggles against its competitors, it might be wiser to look for a lower price earnings ratio to reflect that risk. This is a basic overview, but it's a good starting point for understanding when to pay more or less per dollar of earnings. There's also something called the price to free cash flow ratio, commonly used by major value investors. They focus on free cash flow because it's the cash available to benefit shareholders. The price to free cash flow ratio shows how much you're paying per dollar of free cash flow. So if the price to free cash flow ratio is 1, you're paying $1 for every $1 of free cash flow. Similar rules that apply to the PE ratio also apply to the price to free cash flow ratio. Now that we know these two important concepts when it comes to investing, we can start looking at some examples of stocks which made incredible results in the past, actually 100 baggers, which are companies that 100x your initial investment, and look at the average PE ratio of these 100 stocks in the past 20 years. One company that could have turned your investment into 100x over the past 20 years is Titan Company. This company is in the consumer discretionary sector and sells products like watches and jewelry. 20 years ago, Titan had a price earnings ratio of 16 and a price to free cash flow ratio of 11, which means it was reasonably priced. If the company was good at competing and managing its finances, it would have been a smart investment that could grow significantly over time. The average price earnings ratio of stocks that have gained 100 times their value over the past 20 years is 18.6. This suggests that lower price earnings ratio often leads to big gains in individual stocks. I hope this gave you a clear picture of how investing in the S&P 500 can lead to significant returns, especially when you take advantage of compound interest. Additionally, investing in individual stocks can yield even greater rewards if you do your research. If you want to learn more about finding these 100 baggers, check out this video where I explain a simple investing strategy.